Okay. Wasn't that fun? I would like to call to order the regular meeting of the Canyon City Planning Commission for April 21st, 2015. If everybody would please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I certainly will. We have a couple of excused absences this evening. Chairman Troutman is absent, Commissioner Cromer is absent, and Commissioner Embry is absent, and Commissioner Frieda is absent. So we will start with Commissioner Bellantoni as Vice
Present.
Chair. Commissioner Walsh,
Here.
Commissioner Grantham,
Here.
Commissioner Gill.
Here.
Okay.
All right, the next meeting on the next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of the Planning Commission meeting held on April 17th, 2015.
February 17th,
What did I say?
Madam Chairman.
What did I say?
You said April.
Oh, I'm stuck in April. February 17th, 2015. Thank you, ma'am.
Madam Chair.
Dr. Madam Chair.
Doctor, Madam Chair.
Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes? No. Do I hear a motion?
Madam Chair. I'd like to move that we approve the minutes as written.
Second.
Thank you. Call for roll, please.
Commissioner Grantham,
Aye.
Commissioner Walsh,
Yes.
Commissioner Gill,
Yes.
Commissioner Bellantoni.
Aye. So the minutes are approved as presented. The next item on the agenda for April 21st is a report on industrial uses as requested in February's meeting as part of the recommendation to City Council to revise the uses of the industrial zone district.
Madam Chair, thank you very much. I just wanted to make this report as part of the public record. This was presented to you in March in a work session. The Planning Commission discussed it. There would be, at that time, probably one change in the next zoning amendment that comes forward that would have to do with backyard chickens in the industrial district. Otherwise, those other two items that had to do with rafting takeout facilities and RV parks would be on hold since we're going through the corridor plan and the Arkansas River plan and can expect perhaps a zone overlay that would change things quite drastically perhaps in that corridor. So I just wanted to make this part of the public record and we will file this away for right now. And that's all I needed to say about that.
So are there any questions about backyard chickens for our planner? No? Okay. All right, the next item on our agenda is a public hearing. So we would like to open the public hearing for the provisions of the Canyon City Municipal Code, and in particular Title 17 thereof, the subdivision and development regulations and the comprehensive plan of the City of Canyon City are incorporated into the record of this meeting as if set forth verbatim. So, Associate Planner, do we have the proof of notification?
Yes, we do. Public notice was published at least 15 days prior to this public hearing, but according to the requirements for off-street parking, where this particular provision is located, does not require a public notice. But we did it anyway, just to make sure that if there were people who were interested in this particular topic, that they could come out and talk about it.
And just so that we're clear on what that topic is, this is a public hearing to consider a request from Jason Messer to reduce off-street parking requirements for a conditionally approved boarding house located at 431 Harrison in the R2 Medium Density Residential Zone District pursuant to Chapter 17, 28080C, off-street parking and loading. Pretty clear on that? Okay. Would the applicant please come forward and let us introduce yourself and state your request?
My name is Jason Messer, and I guess the request is for the reduction in the parking requirements for 431 Harrison. And I'm happy to share with you as much or as little information about the project as you'd like to hear, but ultimately we would like to see that reduction drop to 3 to be able to accommodate the housing that we are trying to provide. We have a total of 10 parking places. 3 of them are off-street. The remaining are on-street. And we would like to accommodate an additional 3 residents. So ultimately 13 is what would be required.
You're seeking a reduction of 3 spaces?
Correct. So we would need 13 by the regulation, but we only have 10. So we'd like to reduce that by 3.
Sure. Can you, in what capacity do you serve at this location for this business?
I own the property.
You own the
I own
property?
the property.
Do you run the boarding house?
Yes, we own the property, and then we also have a property management company that will oversee the management of it. So we will be operating it as well.
Now? Okay. Ms. Bernath?
Okay, I'm going to just kind of fill in a little bit. This is a kind of an unusual thing. I'm not sure that you've ever had a request pursuant to this section of the code come to you, but I think back in 2011, the parking, offloading, and parking requirements were changed to allow folks who have unique circumstances come to the Planning Commission for a request of a reduction in parking. The reason for some of these changes were that there are buildings such as Mr. Messer's at 431 Harrison. I'm not sure if you are aware and know of this property, but it's one of our typical underutilized properties that we have discussed in the past. And it's very difficult for that property to be put to use and still be able to meet the off-street parking requirements. And in this instance, because he had a couple of unique circumstances, we thought it was appropriate to use this portion of the code for him, and we state it here in bold for you that you can offer a reduction to him for these unique circumstances. And he has 2. He's going to provide supportive housing at 431 Harrison in the form of a boarding house or lodging house. And he has indicated that most of his residents will not even have a vehicle. So that's one unique circumstance. The other is that he has decided, in his materials has provided, that he will be providing a bank of bicycles for folks to get around. They generally, according to Jason, have employment in the central business area, so that's an appropriate form of transportation, and staff thought that it was a reasonable request and supports it with a couple of, actually we have 3 conditions. One is to actually allow 10 total parking spaces as shown in the conditional use permit application, which is a reduction of 3, as Madam Chairperson indicated earlier. And then we would suggest that we review the facility's parking situation for the first 3 years, just to make sure that it functions properly, it's not causing problems for the neighborhood. And then it was also added by Mr. Havens that a review could prompt another hearing to modify parking or other changes to the conditional use permit as it might be required in order to alleviate any problems that might be noticed during those reviews. Otherwise, we think that this is a reasonable request. And we can answer any other questions if you have them.
Any questions? Commissioner Walsh?
I'll start by saying I compliment Mr. Messer and you as well, Terry, for an excellent report. Lays out everything very clearly, helps us understand. Secondly, I applaud the use that is intended here. I think that's wonderful service to the overall community of Canyon City, and particularly to the individuals who will be residents in your housing. Third, upon reading this and sort of thinking ahead, it occurred that probably many of the residents wouldn't have a vehicle anyway. And so a reduction seems to me to be very logical and something that I will support, absolutely.
I think you said pretty much everything. It's something this community needs. Valerie and I have helped people in these situations and put them in our loft. We have a loft upstairs and stuff. And had there been a facility like yours in the area, we probably wouldn't have had to do that. I think what you're doing is very commendable. Like Mike said, it's something our community needs. There's people that are here that just can't afford to spend $500, $600, $700, $800 a month on some place to live. I agree with this 110%. And the chances of them having, like you said, their own transportation is probably less than 50%. I mean, in real world, yes.
I recall a bike rack credit.
Yes, there's that as well, but we decided not to use that. Bike rack credit, I don't think would have given them enough. I think they had to have a certain minimum. Let me look. I know you were going to ask me that question.
While you're looking that up, Mr. Messer, can I ask you, you're the owner of the property. Are you going to be involved in the, somewhat the daily operations of the facility?
Yeah, we'll have a full-time on-site manager in addition to a full-time property manager that oversees more than just that one project, but so there's layers of accountability there rather than just single point.
Yourself?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
As it turns out that he would have had to have a bank of 12 bicycles in order for that
make up
to
for the-
work. And so this really was the more appropriate thing for him. More appropriate avenue, I should say.
All right, are there any other questions? I guess my only concern is, again, as Commissioner Walsh said, what a great service for our community and those who are in need. But what happens in the event the clientele changes and you move into those that are more affluent and have vehicles? And we may be looking at impact to neighbors. So,
That's probably the importance of the review process and kind of doing that annually. However, I would suggest that, you know, with it being kind of a shared living environment, I think that more affluent demographic probably isn't going to want to share in that. But I mean, it certainly could be a reality.
This is a facility that has guest rooms and then shared kitchen and bathroom facilities. So that higher demographic, like he said, probably isn't.
okay, any other questions for the applicant, for our planner? Okay, I will close the public hearing. I have to? I really don't like hitting that thing.
softly.
I'm not going to then.
Put your hand down, Denise, and let her hit on top of it.
Do I hear a motion?
Yes. The initial motion is as following. The Canyon City Planning Commission, upon conducting a public hearing on the above captioned request and after considering testimony presented by city staff, the applicant, and other parties, finds as follows. Notice the public hearing was properly given, although it was not absolutely required. The request for a reduction in the parking requirement is appropriate and reasonable and provides, as conditioned, an adequate level of parking for the needs of the facility. Therefore, based upon these findings, the Canyon City Planning Commission hereby makes the following decision to be reflected in its resolution on this matter. Approval of the request for a reduction in the parking requirement from 13 spaces to 10 spaces for a boarding house in the R2 medium-density residential zone district. Approval of the request for reduction in the parking requirement from 13 spaces to 10 spaces for a boarding house. I'm sorry, I'm repeating, that's not necessary. So, accept it as proposed.
Is it your decision not to use the conditions that were suggested by
Oh,
staff?
No, we would go with the conditions.
Okay, if
Would you
you
like me
would-
to read those?
Would you please,
Okay.
sir?
As conditioned, number one, the parking shall be provided as depicted in the conditional use permit application that reflects 3 spaces on-site and 7 spaces on the street for a total of 10 parking spaces to serve the parking needs of the requested number of guest rooms, 11, and on-site manager's quarters and 1 full-time employee. Number 2, parking shall be reviewed by the Planning Commission once yearly on or around the anniversary date of the approval of the conditional use permit for the first 3 years of the active permit in order to determine that A, or 1, adequate parking is being provided pursuant to the approved conditional use permit, and this approval for reduced parking, and that 2, parking for the facility has not created adverse impacts or hazardous conditions for the neighboring properties. Number 3, if, following any such review, the Planning Commission may, pursuant to adequate and timely notice, conduct a public hearing to consider whether additional parking spaces or, alternatively, a reduction in available guest rooms is required as of the time of such hearing. No such adjustment shall be ordered unless the Planning Commission specifically finds that the parking for the facility has created adverse impacts within the neighborhood of the facility.
I'll second that.
Discussion on the motion?
Commissioner Walsh?
Yes.
Commissioner Gill?
Yes.
Commissioner Bellantoni?
Aye.
Commissioner Grantham?
Yes.
The motion is approved by unanimous vote. All right, we have record adjournment, 18 minutes.
Record.
Yes, thank you. So I adjourn the meeting. Do I have to hit this thing?